Another bad day, dark feelings are back, assaulting your heart with a panic attack. There ain't no shame in feeling depressed. You need to sit down and talk, son, get it off.
Hello everybody, thank you for tuning in and welcome along to the Andy's Man Club podcast. Great to see so many of you back. We've got a really good series of podcasts booked in over the next couple of weeks for you. Some really insightful guests, some really powerful stories, some amazing stories going to come out of the things that we're going to talk about. Slightly changed up the format a little bit. Obviously, I think some of you got used to the fact that last time it was myself and Luke Ambler, obviously Andy's Man Club founder, that recorded and hosted most of the podcast together, but we've decided that we're going to bring some more of the faces from around the country into Andy's Man Club. So today, first of all, I'd like to welcome my co-host, and I'm not really sure which name to use. He goes under a bit of a pseudonym at times, don't you, mate? We'll go with your Sunday name, and I'll introduce you as Andy. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
How are you doing?
Good, pal. Good to see you.
I hope you're not including me on that list of insightful people.
You can be when you choose to be.
I think you'll be very disappointed if that's the case.
Yeah, go on then, mate. Tell us a little bit about yourself, which club you attend, and a little bit about your AMC background. Why not?
Yeah, so I'm Andy. I'm 38, 39 in August. I've been coming to AMC since August 2018. So coming up to 3 years this summer. Basically, I had a breakdown and I pushed an awful lot of people away. And I felt isolated and alone. And I went to AMC because I wanted to be part of that brotherhood. And, it was immediate connection and immediate love. It was great. The welcome that I had from the people that first night that I went was intense.
Brilliant. You attend our Huddersfield club as well, don't you? Obviously, we'll give a shout out to those boys down at Huddersfield.
Yeah, originally from Leeds, but the lads from Huddersfield don't hold that against me too badly.
Which is a change in Huddersfield, to be quite honest with you. If you mention Leeds anywhere in and around Huddersfield, you'd only get less than a welcome. I think it's fair to say.
Well, I think the advantage that I have is that I don't really follow football, so I'm kind of on neutral territory in that respect.
Definitely. So yeah, great to have you along, Andy. I'm sure that I will call you by your nickname at some point, which is Ernest. I'm sure I'll fall into doing that. So if anybody does sort of follow on and go, where's this Ernest fella come from? And he's also, known under the name of Ernest Scribbler as well, aren't you, mate?
That's all right. I answer to both, mate. So.
And a huge welcome to our guest this morning. I'd like to welcome along Luke Scott. Luke, great to have you along, pal. Nice to see you.
Thanks for having me on, Andy, and great to meet yourself, Andy from Huddersfield. Great to be part of the brotherhood, like you've said, and I totally resonate with parts of your story, what you just mentioned there, apart from being welcome from the very start, how I got into facilitating and giving back. So it made me feel welcome from the start. I just wanted to give that experience to the next man as well.
Love that. And I think that's where we'll start as well. Luke, obviously you are a facilitator for Andy's Man Club as well over on the east side. We can tell by your accent. It sticks out straight away. And I think that's one of the bonuses of Andy's Man Club, in it, that the different sort of accents that you hear all around the country, and that's what we're hoping to represent through getting more and more people on here. Tell us a little bit about your background, and we'll start off with your AMC background, mate.
My AMC background, I first turned up 2018 after many years of struggling with my own mental health. I tried turning up 2 weeks on the trot and didn't manage to get through the doors. I just bottled it. First time, went back home and told my wife that I'd done it. She asked me how it was, and I was like, crumbs, like I can't even answer that because I don't know. Second week, I'd sold my car in between, so I got a bus there, and because of the times, the buses started running hourly after the sort of 7 o'clock when AMC starts, so I had to walk home. Again, told her I'd done it, and I was like, yeah, well, it just went like this, and that made it up a bit. And then when I actually did go, I was suicidal. I probably wanted to take my own life about 3 hours before the session where I actually stepped through the door. And yeah, it was just completely different I didn't know what to expect, but it was completely different to anything that I could expect. So who thinks about big burly men talking on a Monday night about how they're feeling and their emotions and what they're going through? But it worked. And I didn't know how I felt afterwards, but there was something telling me that I needed to go back that next week. So I did, and I've never looked back. And I've been every Monday that I can go. So, and then, I got into the facilitating.
Unreal. Like I said, we said earlier there was going to be some powerful stories, and we're straight in with one there. Obviously, the power of AMC and the power of talking. A guy that's literally 3 hours away from wanting to end his own life walks through the doors of a club, talks about it, opens up, and then look at the situation you're in now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm quite happy to discuss my backstory and what I do now, because I've actually managed to set up my own peer support organisation from stepping through them doors at ANDYSMANCLUB, and ANDYSMANCLUB Hull is my club, the one I attend. But as Andy said earlier, it's part of the brotherhood. I've been fortunate enough to attend in-person meetings before we had this lockdown over at Huddersfield, and met people from all over the country, all over the UK. And one of my biggest inspirations is now in America and doing great stuff over there in terms of peer support and getting men talking.
Brilliant. Yeah, we'll come on to that. Obviously, you said that you've now got your own sort of organisation. Tell us a little bit about that, Luke, and why obviously you said that AMC was something of an inspiration behind it, but I'm sure there's a little bit more than just that. If you want to tell us a little bit about what that is, tell us what it's called, everything else, I'll leave it up to you. You'll be able to introduce it better than I will, pal.
Yeah, I suppose it's best that I start from the beginning and before ANDYSMANCLUB, before I'd even presented there. As far back as I can remember, I wanted to join the army from playing with sticks and soldiers in the school playground. I went all my way through school life wanting to join the army, so I did. 16, 17, went away and did that. Didn't even have a backup plan for if it didn't work out. And I unfortunately had a knee injury and was medically discharged from the army just 12 months into my training. So I was on a train home with a lad who chose to come out and was saying about all his plans and stuff, what he was going to do. And I was sat basically in tears because I didn't know what I was going to do. Started skipping from job to job, college course to college course for about 2 weeks at a time, heavily drinking. Just a month after I left the army, we found out that my girlfriend was pregnant, and it was all good. I was still only sort of 18 at the time when I found out. Missed the past 12 months of my life away from friends, so I was quite excited to sort of get that back and regain the friendships that I didn't lose, but just to try and reconnect with people. And yeah, found out she was pregnant. I was excited. I was at an age where I always wanted to be a young dad anyway, and it ended up being an ectopic pregnancy. So we lost that. She had to have an operation to have one of her tubes removed. I didn't deal with it very well. Again, skipping from job to job, pub to pub every night if I could. And then just 11 months later, or in the summer, actually, we found out she was pregnant again. And then, 11 months later, we had a healthy little boy. It was all good. Everything was going well. And then, sort of as relationships do, they sort of fizzled out, but we still supported each other as parents and as friends, I suppose. She's always been my best friend, and we stuck at that for the sake of our child, on and off. I kept on drinking when I wasn't looking after the lad. Again, skipping from job to job. We decided that actually we were good together. We'd give it another go in the relationship, and she got pregnant again quite early on. And this turned out, going all the way through it, I was anxious about if it was an ectopic again or if anything was going to happen, like the normal parenting things. But after we'd had the lad already, he was healthy, the anxiety around that and the worry around that was a lot less, because I knew it was possible to have children effectively, when even though the chances had been halved after she had the fallopian tube removed. And it ended up being a stillbirth. Absolutely terrible. We was away from home. We got transferred to Sheffield Hospital on New Year's Day 2011, and our son was born asleep on the 3rd of January 2012, sorry. Our eldest was born 2011. 3 days in Sheffield on New Year. Absolutely terrible. Couldn't get home, couldn't do anything. Just had to wait there, sort of with our baby in our arms that won't cry and anything like that. Didn't have any reactions, and it affected us both massively, as I'm sure you can imagine. And yeah, just absolutely abused the drink, totally. Well, I used it and then abused it. I used it both, and the relationship again broke down. And I was 21, 20. Yeah, I was 21 at this point, so I was still quite young to have 2 children, let alone sort of planning a funeral for one of them. And yeah, job to job, I couldn't hold a job down for probably longer than 6 months, and I thought that was an achievement at the time. Just carried on getting sacked, or just not turning up, or just sacking it off altogether. But I was always a good parent when I had my lad, and it's sort of something that really helped both of us in that time, because we did have something else to focus on. So it was good and bad, because it obviously got all of our attention, but then he didn't have a little brother to share all that with, which was unfortunate. But one of them things that happened, and again, didn't deal with it, similar to the topic, although very different situations and different mindsets to be in. Just didn't deal with it, and yeah, it was the alcohol. The relationship broke down again, unfortunately. And in the summer of 2011, when I was working on our local docks for a lorry firm, the police turned up one day and said, "Oh, we need to question you down the police station." I said, "All right, that's fine." And when I got there, I found out I'd been falsely accused of rape. Absolutely tore me apart. Like I said, not even dealt with the ectopic, not dealt with the stillbirth properly, and now I've got this to deal with. Still only 21, and I've got these charges going on. I lost a lot of friends through that because of sort of the allegation that it is. They didn't want to be associated with me, which was fine. I knew the truth. I'd have happily lost everyone to share my story. It was going all the way through the courts, and it was getting to the point where there was probably going to be charges coming up, and the charges were dropped, which was thankful for me. Like, I knew all along that I was innocent, but I suppose going up to the courts, it was her word against mine or their words against mine. And yeah, I was just relieved that they were dropped, and I could start focusing on my little boy again, and just building that relationship that I'd not necessarily pushed aside, but I wasn't able to focus on fully because of everything that was going on. I just didn't have time to do it, although I was, like I say, still being a fantastic parent, and his mum was fantastic support to me throughout. And then she supported me all the way through the court cases, the allegation, everything. And we decided we'd try and give it another go. I finally got into a job that I was enjoying, become a bus driver, cut down on the drinking. And then just 11 days into my bus driver training, she told me she was pregnant again. I was like, oh God. So then all the anxiety started again. And this time they were triple, quadruple, 5 times higher than what they had been with our firstborn that was like healthy, even though we'd had the worries through the ectopic, just because of the stillbirth and things like that, and everything that potentially could have gone wrong thankfully didn't, but the thoughts were there. What if this, what if that? And then yeah, our little girl was born happy and healthy, February 2017. And although I thought I'd dealt with everything that I've been through in the past, I was still probably abusing the alcohol when I could, although I wasn't drinking as much on my days off. And when I had a day off after work, I'd go and just drink just to cope with my emotions, and because I'd never spoken about it, only to a few friends, a few family, and yeah, I just hadn't dealt with it correctly. And then on Christmas Eve 2017, bit of a tradition, I'm sure we're not the only family that does it, goes out for a few drinks Christmas Eve and has a few beers and then goes back home, puts the kids to bed. I didn't go home that night. It was my daughter's first Christmas. I should have been tucking her in bed, reading the stories. I stayed out in the pub, managed to get hold of a couple of drugs, and fully intended to take my life. I shut up one of the biggest, well, it's the second largest suspension bridge in the world, the Humber Bridge just near us. I shut that off for a couple of hours in the early hours of Christmas morning, and was talked down because I literally did not want to come off that bridge. Even the thought of my children couldn't bring me off at that time. So the police were called. armed police came, said, "We've got armed police traced on you." I said, "That's absolutely fine. I don't want to be here." So I pulled the trigger, whatever. Anyway, they managed to talk me off, take me to a mental health assessment unit. And obviously doctors were on call, so it took a few hours for him to get there. And literally they said, "Are you all right?" Bearing in mind it was armed police that took me to this assessment unit. And I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." And there was a couple of questions, but I was probably being questioned for about 15, 20 minutes. And then they let me go. And the police dealt with me down at the police station, which was all good. I got 2 meals, green beef lasagna, microwaved, freezing cold, awful. Yeah, my parents come and pick me up from the police station at about 6 o'clock on the night, so I spent the full day in there. Awful experience, but do I regret it? No, because it's part of who I am now. And I decided that something needed to change. I needed to do something, so I'd cut down on the drink, and at least I tried. And then just a month later, I was back doing the same things, thinking I was all right and thinking I'd dealt with it. And then November 2018, me and my wife had, obviously my wife now, my partner, had been to a charity event for our son. They've got, my friend's son's got 4-limb cerebral palsy, so we're always doing fundraising events. We went there. I'd almost planned the night except for the charity stuff, what was going to happen at the charity event. I knew that I was going to get drunk. I knew that I wanted to end my life. And we'd actually won a competition to stay at the hotel where this event was, so which was fine. I didn't tell anyone my intentions. I'd written a note and forgot to pack it in my overnight bag. So it was still on my desk at home. And then went up, had a few beers, and I couldn't wait for the charity event to end because I was just feeling so negative inside, but you wouldn't be able to tell on the outside. And I've got a picture actually that's, you might have seen it on LinkedIn. It got 4.5 million views, and it's just a little bit about the night I intended to end my life. And yeah, the party ended. I was so relieved. Had a few more beers, and just went away, like settled into bed with my wife, and then as soon as she was asleep, got up, got dressed, and left the hotel and went back to the Humber Bridge. And this time, the only thing that had changed is my children. I could picture everyone's life without me better off, apart from my children. I didn't want them growing up without a dad or with a stepdad that didn't care for them as much as I did, or just without a father, I suppose, for all that love that I could give. But I still fully intended to end my life. And again, police took me down, took me away to mental health assessment unit, and straight away I thought, that's fine, because they'll just let me go again. It'll be the similar story as last time. And they didn't. They kept me in for 5 or 6 days and sort of diagnosed me with severe depression, severe anxiety, and put me on medication, which was fine. I obviously needed help. I wanted help at this point. And upon leaving the assessment unit, they said, "We advise you to not drink for at least a week while the tablets set in." I said, "That's fine." I didn't leave my house for 3 or 4 days after leaving the assessment unit. And then I was getting sort of almost claustrophobic, but I'm not. I just didn't like being in the same place, like staring at the same 4 walls. So I decided to get back out running. I've always been into running, fitness, like from a young age, to join the army. And then I was about 1 kilometre in, and I started struggling a bit, and even the little that negative voice inside my head was, "Come on, don't give up that easy. I want a bit of a challenge." And I ended up doing 10k. And then about 2 weeks after I'd left, I started running past the pub to see how strong-willed I was. And I wanted a pint. It was Friday night. The sun was beaming, but I was stinking. I didn't have my wallet on me purposely. And I thought, if I want to go to the pub, I've got to go home, get a shower, get changed, and then come back. And I've just done like 10, 15k. I cannot be bothered to come back. So I'm now 897 days teetotal since that. So yeah, changed my life around, and I got into community mental health team when I was discharged from the assessment unit. and they provided me with support and other areas to go and get support. And I ended up going like boxing for our local recovery college. Never boxed before, but I'd always wanted to. So I just went and did a bit of training every Thursday afternoon, and then I found out from the coach there that I could go on the nights as well. And in the meantime, I'd lost my driving license through DVLA, so I couldn't drive buses. But I was hoping to go back into driving buses, and because I just love driving, so I was hoping to get that back. And anyway, I started boxing, and they said that I could go on the night sessions and it wouldn't cost me anything because I was part of the recovery college. So I started doing that, and then lost my job through all that. They couldn't find me another alternative within the workplace to fulfil my contractual duties. So they let me go. We left on good terms, but then I had all the time in the world to train. So I was training sort of 7 days a week really. And because I didn't have a car, I had to get the bus. So I got the bus there. And then one day I was coming over the flyover and I was thinking, I'm aching like mad. Why do I do this to myself? And this was like a Monday morning. The week's going to be knackered now just because I feel terrible. And I was like, right, well, we'll go again tomorrow. That's fine. And I just started saying, we go again to myself quite a lot. And then I started helping out at the gym, coaching the younger kids because it was getting busy and the coach had asked me to help out. So I did. And I started using it there, and I started using it in sort of the gym when I was training with other people and sort of in the circuits. I was like, come on, right, we'll go again. It's time. Let's go. And I just seemed to be using it all the time. And that's where my business of We Go Again come from my back journey. And we don't give up, we go again. And I support anyone over the age of 18, males, females, in groups, one-to-one, phone call, just anything like that that's going to inspire others to not give up. And then carried on building it. And I still wanted my driving license back, but I had to think, where am I going to go now? Because I ain't got a driving license, I ain't got a bus license, but I need to do something. So I started reviewing every single job interview that I'd ever been to, including the army and including sort of a pot washer at 15. There was one thing that stood out in particular, and that was I said in every single interview, I enjoy helping people and I enjoy meeting new people. And it just seemed to fit. And then I got into mental health, peer support work through a different organisation. And now, I set up the YouTube channel, We Go Again, got some positive feedback. And then saying, for example, one person has said, that video saved my life. So I was like, right, I want to be more directly involved now. So that's where the business come from, under the same name, We Go Again. And then I'm now working for the NHS as a mental health peer support worker to provide support to people in situations that I was in, like I say, nearly 1,000 days teetotal and counting.
Wow. I'll tell you what, look, what a journey you've been on, to go from, like you said, you've gone all the way back there, and I'm so happy you have done, because, you've just said there that people will turn around and say that you sharing your story will help them. Absolutely blown away by that, mate. And like you say, for what, I'm almost speechless. Do you know what I mean? To see somebody have come through all those challenges that you've just described, all those different, bits of adversity, to be where you are now, sat with a smile on your face, just shows that, obviously Andy's Man Club's whole ethos is there's hope. Whatever certain situation you're in at that moment in time can and will get better. And you're the epitome of that, mate.
Yeah, 100%. And I remember when I first stepped through Andy's Man Club, and I first managed to, you yourself, Andy, will know the venue at Hull, although we've expanded the original venue. Stepped through, and you probably know some of the facilitators. And I sat down and I thought, I ain't going to say anything. I'm just going to sit and listen. And then one of the other guys said, oh, well, I'll leave you with him. He's all right. He'll look after you. And I said, it was Leon anyway. I said, I'm not talking tonight. And he was like, well, you might do, because we've got some good questions. And I did. I think I answered 4 out of the 5 on the first night. And I don't know why, but I can't explain it. I don't know why I wanted to go back, because I don't feel maybe it's because I don't feel like I've got the full potential out of it on that first night, but there was something that drew me back that next week and the week after. And then I could feel myself getting better. And I decided that when I sort of decided that I wanted to give back to others, I decided I wanted to start help facilitating and see how I could get into that. And I spoke about it. And the guy I spoke to said, I really appreciate it, but I don't think you're ready. And I was like, all right, that's fine. I totally appreciate that. Carried on going, carried on getting better, carried on doing things in my spare time. And then just started naturally giving back to the club by sharing my story. And then we had another discussion 2 months later, I think it was. And he said, yeah, I never doubted that you'd be able to facilitate because anyone can. But I just don't think he was ready at that time. And looking back, yeah, absolutely. I was still teetering on the edge of what if and stuff like that. So it was all the right choices, and now I'm proud to facilitate and open the doors on a Monday and volunteer for 4 other charitable organisations as well.
Fantastic. You brought up an interesting point there. Obviously, the first night of AMC. I'm going to come to yourself, Andy, and I'm going to ask, what was your first ever AMC night like? From walking through the door, tell us your little bit of background on your first ever AMC night, because everybody's is different but a bit the same at the same time, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's always going to be a nervous experience. I mean, as you know, I'm a fairly gregarious person, so I don't shy back from social interaction. But I mean, I'd had the flyer for AMC for a good 6 or 7 weeks before I actually went through the door. I know a lot of people kind of flip back and forth, and you can see them at the, I'm sure Luke will appreciate, if you're ever stood on the door, you can kind of clock the people that may well have a flyer in their pocket, but they kind of do that shuffle past the door and they take off again, and you'll see them weeks later actually pluck up the courage to do it. And yeah, it's a strange experience walking through those doors for the first time, and I don't think it's to be sniffed at for anybody, because it's really brave, especially given the weight of what's come before it, and the drive to come in has to be quite a powerful one. But the welcome that I had off some of the lads that night, it still to this day nearly makes me tear up. It's a wonderful thing. I was so nervous, and I'd spent so long not really talking to anybody apart from my partner, and just to have that kind of immediate arm around the shoulder, drawing me in and kind of saying it's all right. I mean, say what you need to say. If you don't feel up to saying anything, you don't have to say anything. But I mean, within 2 or 3 weeks, I had lifelong friends, and to this day, and I mean, it only gets better as we do kind of events around the country and meet other people from around the country, and that net spreads wider and wider, and you appreciate just how magnificent that brotherhood is. I mean, I've never experienced anything like it. I mean, I think everybody, that first couple of weeks, they turn up and they just look grey. And the power in seeing people go from that back to being their former selves, or even better versions of that, it's something that I don't think can be adequately explained. You have to experience it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Andy. At one point, I wanted the old me back, but then sort of after a couple of weeks of thinking that, I thought, well, I don't want the old me back because he was struggling. So
Luke 2.0, mate, that's what you're after, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so we just developed it, and I totally agree. I think I was coming up to 6 weeks teetotal when I first stepped through the door at ANDYSMANCLUB, and I remember speaking to someone who was on a similar journey. He's a little bit further ahead of me now. He's probably 3 or 4 years, but he got me talking and just encouraged me to carry on the journey that I'm on. And if I did fancy a beer, all right, have one. But look at the moments, what you're enjoying without it. So.
Well, I think this is a decent enough time to jump in with the middle section of our podcast, which for those that you watched the last series that we did last year will know that this is where we run through a little mini AMC session, just with the three of us, just to give a little bit of an insight into, there might be somebody listening to this podcast or watching this podcast that sort of thinks to themselves, well, you've talked about these sessions, but how do they work? So, we're going to show people and we're going to sort of really open up and treat it as an AMC. So I'll facilitate, and then obviously I'm with two facilitators anyway, so you guys know the drill. But there's obviously three things we don't talk about within an Andy's Man Club. Those three things being politics, religion, and medication. Obviously, politics and religion, very divisive subjects. What works for one person doesn't work for another, and it's quite similar with meds. Obviously, we are peer-to-peer support, not there to offer any sort of advice in any sort of way, shape, or form. And obviously, medications get discussed with the doctor. Talk as much or as little as you guys feel comfortable to. And we'll go straight in with the first question. Normally, we'd do a little bit of an introduction and tell us your positive reason for being here, but I think we've already got to the bottom of that one. So we'll go with how's your week been? My week this week has been really good. I think a little bit of sunshine really starts to help, doesn't it? Obviously, we're just coming out off the back of what's been a tough lockdown period through a winter. To actually now have a few of those restrictions lifted, be able to go to the shops, be able to do just a little bit of socialising and bits and bobs like that with some sunshine on your back, I think is a really nice sort of thing. So that's been a massive positive of my week. Was able to go and spend an afternoon with my grandma in her garden. My grandma's 98, and the fact that I was able to go over and sit in her garden and have a cup of tea with her, for the first time since sort of middle of summer last year. It's the first time I've sort of seen her in the flesh. Obviously, was a massive, massive positive for my week. So, massively positive week. Andy, we'll come on to yourself, mate. How's your week been?
It's been grand. As I say, I would echo most of the sentiments that you've said. I think it's really positive to try and get a bit of fresh air. And that is always more difficult when it's horrible and the wind's tipping it down and the rain's tipping it down. I think that a bit of sunshine is always the tonic that everybody needs. I could see out my window the buds coming out on the trees and stuff like that. And I think it really just lends a sense of positivity to everything. The week's been good. But as I say, I shall move on to the positives in question two.
Love that. A man who's aware of the format. I love it. How's your week been, bud?
On the whole, it's been good. The week before last, obviously, the kids were off. With me working from home, the wife was still out working. I was a climbing frame for 2 weeks, basically, while I was on meetings. But yeah, I'm glad they're back. I love them to bits, but I'm glad they're back. It's been good on the whole. I've been quite active, and like you say, the sunshine, natural vitamin D, just getting out and about.
Love it. Question number two then is always, what's one positive from your week? I've already touched on my main positive, like I say, seeing some family and things like that. But another positive from my week has been just my little boy. I've got a little 7-year-old lad who, since lockdown began actually this time last year, has massively got into his football. And the fact that me and him have now got a shared interest. We spend... Whenever there's football on, we spend some time watching it together. He talks to me constantly about information he's picked up from his sticker book. He's an absolute sponge for it. But just to have that shared interest with my son has been something we've spent a little bit of time this last week. Actually, as you say, making sure that we are active and actually out in the garden playing football, which again, we're now able to do in the winter. My garden, you'll know, Andy, I live just at the top of the hill from where you live. I'm sure that all the moisture that normally sits on my garden runs down into your back garden as well. It's normally about that deep in water is our garden every winter. So now we've got a little bit of an opportunity to get out and, kick a ball around has been really positive. So I've really enjoyed that. So that's the major positive from my week. Andy, what about yourself, mate?
There's been a few. Obviously, with the weather, being able to get out and do a few bits that I've been putting off in the garden. Managed to go out and get my hair cut, which was a positive because I was beginning to look like the old man of the forest. I think the biggest one for me, and the thing that I take away as the biggest positive, is that our lass has finally had a jab over the weekend, her first jab over the weekend. So things moving forward, and hopefully we're not too far away from parents being able to visit and, you know, getting back a degree of normalcy, because I haven't seen my parents in best part of a year. So
yeah, like we said, I think with the restrictions, you know, ever so slightly being lifted, and like you said, positives like that, it's really nice to be optimistic about that sort of thing at the moment, isn't it? It's dragged on for a long, long time. I never envisaged when we were doing these podcasts last year, you know, myself and Luke, that we'd still be in a sort of position of still not clear of it, you know, over 12 months later. So now it's amazing we've got that massive positivity and that massive bit of optimism, you know, I think something to look forward to. So yeah, I love that. Cheers, Andy. Luke, positive from your week, mate, please.
Yeah, so this year I'm taking part I'm raising money for 12 organisations over the full year. I called it Target 12. I'm running a marathon a month for a different charity. And on Friday, although I'd had a good week, it had been like up and down, but mainly good. And on Friday night, I managed to get out, go for a run, run half a marathon on a route I've never been before. And I just remember thinking, this looks a little bit edgy, but it was all right. And it just reminded me of the journey that I've been on myself, that I've just spoke about. Like, I didn't know where I was, and I knew that I was going to get through it just by putting one foot in front of the other and just getting through it. And then coming to the end where I did actually recognise and turn back, come home. But it just reminded me that no matter how close to home you are, you can still sometimes feel in that unknown area and unknown surroundings. But it was just good to get out, and I knew that everything was going to be all right, because I've been there mentally before.
Love it. I love that analogy as well. Like you say, it's what life is really, and it just putting one foot in front of the other. You know, as you say again, you go again. Once you put that one step down, you go again. You put the next one down. It's lovely. I love that. So cheers for that, fellas. Question number 3, as you guys will be aware, is there anything you need to get off your chest? I'm in a pretty good position at this moment in time. Like I say, I've got a pretty positive outlook. The only sort of slight major bugbear as a football fan would be the European Super League, but the least said about that, the better. So yeah, we'll move on. Andy, anything that you particularly need to get off your chest at this moment in time, pal?
I mean, most weeks I kind of tick along fairly all right. I mean, I don't normally say a great deal on question 3, because the only real thing that I've got to complain about is the lack of a work situation at the minute. I mean, it's been difficult for some time, and the pandemic hasn't helped things, because, to be honest, most of the work in which I'm kind of experienced is kind of office based, and most offices aren't looking to hire, or they're still shut down and stuff like that. So, I mean, I'm kind of resigned to the fact that things are going to be tricky on that format for some time. But I mean, that's really the only thing that I have to complain about. So, yeah.
Well, like you say, the fact that we have got this optimism and this sort of opportunity to look forward. I know the office building that we're working in now, there's more people in here today than I've seen for a little while. So my fingers crossed for you there, mate, that more and more officers get taken on and more opportunities start to present themselves for you, mate. As we say again, you go again, keep going, keep trying. It'll, eventually it will happen. So cheers, pal. Luke, anything you feel in your chest, mate?
No, I'm similar to yourselves. Question 3 is usually quite a quick one for me, because I'm usually ticking over all right. But last week the gym's opened again, and I'm a boxing coach. But I can't do Mondays, Wednesdays now, because I've just started a business course. I went to go out to my car on Thursday to go coaching for the first time in what feels like forever. Puncher, I was like, oh, no, gutted. So, and I live on like probably the second busiest road in our town. So I'm sitting on the side of the road changing this tyre, thinking should be chuffing boxing. But yeah, just cars, money pits.
Yeah, quite a familiar thing on a Monday night, is that, isn't it? People complain about cars and various different things. They are a pain in the backside, but yeah, it's a bonus that obviously it's one of those situations you can solve, in it. It's one of those situations you can dust yourself down and go, right, well, I've changed it now, I can crack on. But yeah, it's a bit of a shitter when you're in it.
Yeah. Just going back to the European Super League, I don't suppose you're a bit cheesed off because Leeds wouldn't be able to go in it, would you?
Well, if anything, it'd actually improve our position. From what I'm hearing at the moment, we'd be a Champions League club next year. So yeah, it would be tainted though, I think, wouldn't it? It just, it's more the fact that I think it's a little short-sighted and a little bit, it's obviously just money and all that sort of stuff in it. But
too much business, in my opinion.
Yeah, like I say, it is what it is. But we'll wait and see what the outcomes are of that before we formulate an opinion on it. So we'll come on to question number 4. Again, if this is your first time ever sort of interacting with anything Andy's Man Club, question 4 and 5 change every single week. Sometimes they're a little bit funny, sometimes they're a little bit looking at setting targets or focuses on particular weeks or focusing on positives in life and things like that. So question number 4 this week is, what's the biggest change you've made in your life in the last year? The change that I've made has almost been sort of a revisit. Around about 4 years ago when I first started Andy's Man Club, it's coming up to 4 years this next week, I think, actually, as I already would have it. The thing that Andy's Man Club taught me to do was to sort of make myself a bit more of a priority and to look after myself a little bit more, and not being selfish in that respect, but just to, see that, you are a priority, you do matter. And I started to reap the benefits of that. Something that had happened, I think lockdown had its part to play in this, but I'd started to maybe put my focuses elsewhere, and I was starting to find myself, I'm working from home, so I'm going to work longer because I'm able to, and put more into that side of things. Or, I need to make sure that I'm spending my time doing my son's schoolwork and things like that. I maybe forgotten to do the things that I know were good for me. Like I said, I think lockdown was a massive part of that, and it was certainly something that hindered me through that. I think part of me at the point as well felt a little bit guilty for suggesting that lockdown had been tough, because I'm one of those guys in a fortunate position. I've not been on furlough throughout the whole 12 months. I've not been impacted financially. My job's continued. I've got a really supportive household. My wife, my little boy, my mum, my brothers. I've got a massive amount of support around me. I didn't really want to use lockdown as an excuse in inverted commas, but once I'd started to realise that it's not an excuse, it's actually a valid reason. It is something that does impact on people. It is something that, I've been listening to something this morning, actually, a podcast about, somebody used to say something that, a man's life is almost like an equilateral triangle, and it's got work, home, and another on there, and you need all 3 of those different sort of sections of your life. You need somewhere else to be able to go. You can't just exist working at home, living at home, and then being social at home. You need to have that little change of scenery, and it really sort of hammered it home to me. But yeah, putting myself as a bit of a priority is actually, as irony would have it, allowed me to give more of myself to other things. I'm able to, now I've got more of a gap between home me, work me, dad me, social me. I'm able to go and, be all those different parts of my character. It's actually meant that I think my output as far as work has increased. I think I'm a better husband, a better, all these different sides from doing what's, something that 4 years ago I'd perceived as being selfish. Putting myself as a priority and making sure that I'm looking after myself and doing the things that I need to do has actually made me able to offer more of myself. So yeah, that's myself. Andy, we'll come on to yourself. Something that you've the biggest change you've made in your life in the last year.
Well, I just touching on what you said. I mean, you can't pour from an empty cup, mate. You need to make sure that you are all right within yourself before you're able to help others. I mean, it's an age-old adage, but I mean, I know people who, even when they're doing awfully themselves, will still desperately want to help other people. And I think, just being able to say to that person, nobody is going to judge you for having to take a step back and, work on yourself for a little bit. That's important.
It's an adage that's easy to forget though when you're in the eye of the storm, and you can sort of think to yourself, well, I've started to give myself to that, but so I need to continue. And you sort of think to yourself that, well, I've got to make that the priority. Which it's just an easy one to forget. But
I think that's where you trust to your friends to be able to look to you and say, I think you need to take a step back and you need to sort yourself out a little bit. But I mean, I've had a week with this question, and it's still largely stumping me, because I mean, in a year where there's been such meteoric change, it's difficult to kind of pinpoint things. I mean, I've tried to kind of maintain contact with people, whether that be virtually over Google Meet or Zoom or whatever. I've tried to kind of stay in touch with people over the telephone. but yeah, I mean, there's been some difficulties, but I think that remaining kind of open and available, I think that's probably the biggest kind of take home that I've taken from this weird old year.
Brilliant. No, I love that. Cheers, Andy. Luke?
Yeah, just mirroring what you both said. You can't pour from an empty cup. I don't think it is selfish. Selfish by being selfless is how I like to look at it, because it just is. You've got to look after yourself, and in turn, the people around you do get the best version of you, or a better version of you, continually. My change, well, I set up WeGo again in the middle of the first or second lockdown last year, and just to continue that going, it's not much of a change, it's more of an addition, but it's helped change the way I look at things and my mindset and the way other people look at things, if I can help them to change their perceptions on things. So yeah, just continuing what I started, and the WeGo again thing's the main one for me.
Brilliant. Yeah, like I said, hugely positive as well. The impact that's having on everybody that's involved with it is enormous. So brilliant. Question number 5 then, which is a quick fire question. What music do you listen to lift your spirits when you are feeling down? Now, something that I did in the middle of lockdown was I started to do all these, obviously, anybody that follows Luke Campbell on social media will know that he tries to force all these sort of different sort of challenges onto people. And, I'm doing this challenge this week. And he doesn't force them. That's the wrong turn of phrase. But he likes to make people aware of them. But yeah, he sort of, puts all these things out. And one of the things that he did was he did this thing where you just had to try something different every day. And I found that one massively beneficial. And one of those things was it wanted you to create just a 20-minute playlist. It didn't have to be massive. It didn't have to be long, but just of positive songs. So I've got an actual positive playlist on my phone now from that. Like I say, it's only about 20 minutes long. If I'm driving home after a particularly tough day, I can put that on. By the time I've got home, problems are lifted, because obviously there's happy music on there. So there's a little bit of Fleetwood Mac on there because it's a song that we used to sing to my little boy when he was tiny. There's a bit of Oasis on there because I'm a massive Oasis fan. There's a bit of the Stone Roses on there because I'm a Stone Roses fan. There's ELO on there, a couple of curveballs. There's a little bit of everything on there. So yeah, Andy, what sort of music do you listen to if you're ever feeling low and need to be lifted?
Again, this is quite a tricky one because I've got quite a wide taste in music. So I mean, although I think that there are always kind of certain fallbacks. I mean, I think that Bob Marley's a great one. Anything by Sublime will always hit me in the right spot. I like quite a bit of old school soul, a bit of Otis Redding or something like that, or Al Green. They'll always kind of pick me up. But yeah, I mean, there's so much to go into. But as I say, on a quick fire question, I'd say that those are kind of the ones that I'll go for.
Love it. And as well, knowing a little bit of your musical background as well, there's a little bit of curveballs in there from you. I know you like your heavier stuff.
You can't listen to grindcore if you're feeling devastated, can you?
There's something out there that we'll manage. Luke, what about yourself, mate? Music that lifts you?
I'm quite into all sorts of music. I don't know what different genres are which, but I've recently just found out that I quite like indie. I've been listening to a lot of indie stuff lately. It just seems to be uplifting. And I answered this question on Monday, and a lot of stuff that lifts me up is stuff that actually puts other people down.
That's the music, though, isn't it? That one person can talk to around and go, "You listen to that shit," and it's something else that for you is just absolutely brilliant, and it's such a personable thing, and it's such a a personal taste thing as well. I absolutely love that.
I think that's the difference between catharsis and uplifting. You know what I mean? Because some music will speak to you and it'll be cathartic in that moment, but not necessarily uplifting. But if it speaks to you and it does the job, why not?
Does what you need it to do. So that's an AMC in its basic format. Like I say, we rattled through the 5 questions there. Obviously, it normally goes on a little bit longer because there's more than 3 people in the room. But yeah, it's that's the basic premise of an AMC. Talk as much or as little as you feel comfortable to, and look forward to the next AMC, which we're recording this on a Monday night. I've not used tonight's questions to just make sure that you guys don't then feel as though you're answering the questions twice. You've already had a week on those ones, so brilliant. we're just going to finish off as well. Obviously, we're sort of closing in on being on an hour now. I'm going to bring this to both of you as well. I think it's something that when we've got a guest host like Andy on, it's something that I'd like to bring to him. But I'm going to come to you first, Luke. And we're going to go with your 3, 2, 1. It's 3 ways that you promote positive mental health, 2 pieces of advice that you'd like to share, and 1 thing that made you smile recently. So we'll start with your number 3. So 3 ways that you promote positive mental health, Luke.
Keeping active, whether that's walking, running, going to the gym, whatever your ability is, get out there. And if you're comfortable enough, challenge it. Reading, definitely reading. I've massively got into reading sort of in the lockdown, but like through my own mental health journey as well. Just that time to take away and take time for yourself. Be selfish by being selfless.
Love that. 2 pieces of advice that you're willing to share with us, pal, please.
Yeah, I don't think failure is an option. You either win or you learn. And so use that as you will, and don't give up. Go again.
We go again. Like it. And 1 thing that made you smile or laugh recently, mate?
My kids, as annoying as they are, and one's 10, one's 4, they just argue like cat and dog, but they're just brilliant. They just make me laugh all the time.
Brilliant. I'm going to come in with one of those as well. When we were driving to my grandma's on Saturday afternoon, I had my little boy in the back and just had the radio on, and It Smells Like Teen Spirit had come on the radio, and he was sat in the background just listening along, and he went, "Dad, are they singing about avocados and potatoes?" I'm like, "What are you on about?" And he just sat there and went, "Avocados and potatoes, avocados and potatoes." And I've been giggling at it ever since. So yeah, that was... I'm getting funny looks through the office door now as well.
Play the Weird Al Yankovic version, mate.
I'll have to listen to it first to see if there's any choice words in that. But yeah, Andy,
he always goes clean. He always goes clean, but they're very funny.
I'll give it a look, mate. Definitely. So come on to yourself, Andy. 3 ways that you promote positive mental health.
Well, kind of echoing what Luke said, I think it's important to take time for yourself. I'm a big advocate of meditation. I use an app on my phone, but I think it's important to take at least 20 minutes, half an hour every day, just to kind of center yourself and take some quiet time. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like a guided meditation or something like that. It could be just just some time where you just sit quietly and just kind of be alone with your thoughts. But I think that's important. Secondly, getting fresh air. Like Luke was saying with the keeping yourself active and stuff like that, depending on your level of fitness. But I think that it's important to make sure that you're not staring at 4 walls for at least a part of the day. Get out, get some fresh air in your lungs, and take some opportunity to see some other things. And thirdly, I think learn to appreciate the small victories that life throws at us. Because I think that it's an unfortunate fact that most of life is either flat or it's on a negative. You know what I mean? But I think that when you're suffering from poor mental health, you're looking for really, really big wins. And I think that unfortunately that's not always the way that life works. And I think that you've got to be aware of little things that will make you smile, like the buds coming out on the trees, like the dawn chorus, like a really nice sunset or sunrise, and learning to appreciate those things, I think, is very important to continued mental health and good mental health.
Love it. 2 pieces of advice that you'd like to share with us, Andy?
I think that some of the most important lessons that you can learn in life are around those people that you choose to keep around you. I think that one of the most important life lessons that I learned was when I learned to differentiate between who are real friends and who are people that you might just go to the pub with. Because I think that disappointment in that kind of circle tends to come from where you invest too much emotionally in people who realistically you probably shouldn't be relying on things for. So learn who your real friends are. And my second piece of advice is, when you do identify those friends, keep only people in your life that have your best interests in mind and your best interests at heart. You know, anybody else you could probably do without, but you need some people in your life that genuinely have your best interests at heart.
Class. And one thing that made you smile or laugh recently?
Our lass, you know, it can be quite difficult to get to know our lass because she has a very dry and a fairly acerbic wit. But she will never fail to make me smile, just with a little wry aside or something that she said. But yeah, she always puts a grin on my face at least once a day.
Love it. Absolutely love that. Right, nothing more it remains really other than to say thank you to the both of you. As I said at the very beginning, we're going to go through some journeys on this, and I think that's been an enormous one to hear the story that you've told there, Luke, and to hear the adversity you've travelled through and the positives that you've taken from it and the situation you've put yourself in now is nothing less than awe-inspiring, mate. And I wish you every single luck and every single success with everything that you endeavour to do as a result of that. So huge thanks to you, both of you, for spending this morning with me. If anybody obviously has gone through this, wants to know how to get involved with Andy's Man Club, drop us a line. Obviously, we'll put contact details at the end of the video on the pod, and we'll put it on the info on Apple and Spotify and all the rest of it. But info@andysmanclub.co.uk. We currently have 44 groups across the country, with many more to come. By the time this gets released, we might even have more than that. With, you know, an online platform, there's no barrier to stop you getting involved with Andy's Man Club. It's always worth a try as well. Give it a talk, as you've seen some of the guys tonight saying that, you know, the situations they were in when they walked through the door their first ever time to where they are now, it's surely got to be worth a try. So we'll just go round in a circle, fellas, and we'll start off by saying it's okay to talk.
It's okay to talk.
It's okay to talk.